Mark Topkin does a great job. Tampa Times. He's 25 days on the road with his ball club all the way to Game 6 of the World Series. Does a super job and always says hello. Mark, welcome. How are you today, buddy? Okay?
I'm doing well. It's a little cold down here. It's in the 50s, man.
Oh, not terrible. You can live with that. All right. Let's do this first. We all know about the baseball community in Southwest Florida. Were you impressed with the passion displayed after Cash took Snell out, or is it apathetic? What was the reaction by the Tampa fan base and the sport fan down there after Game 6? Let me hear.
Oh, we knew they were out there, no doubt about it, and they knew how to use email and Twitter, that's for sure. The people calling for Cash to be fired, I think, were probably a little excessive there, but there was a lot of passion, was a lot of reaction, a lot of chatter. Most people obviously were against the move, but I think we all kind of understood where it was coming from.
All right, well, that's important. There was reaction. That's what I was looking for, number one. All right, number two, did they get, basically double-crossed with Morton? Did they think that maybe that nobody would offer him the $15 million? I would think they'd want him back. What was going on with Morton going to Atlanta on the same year that they had at $15 million when they could have picked up the option? What was up with that?
Well, I don't think they were double-crossed. I think they made a decision, and we know the Rays base their decisions on a lot of data and a lot of predictive things like that, and they decided he was not worth $15 million to them. I think that's a fair assessment. I think their gamble, Chris, was that they didn't think anybody else was going to offer him 15, and they'd be able to get him back maybe somewhere in that 8 to 12 range is what I had heard, maybe some incentives, guarantee, another option, things like that. But he got his $15 million. I don't think you can blame Charlie Morton, but they certainly would have liked to have him back. He wasn't the pitcher in 2020 he was in 2019. I think that's also a fair assessment. Now, he's 37 years old. Will he be that pitcher again in 2021? Will there be a full season? He didn't make it through the 60-game season. He had a little shoulder issue. So I think those are all questions that came into play on this. But ultimately, the Rays made a decision. He wasn't worth that particular money that they were obligated to give him under the option, and he went out and got it somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't blame Charlie, but I'm a little surprised the Rays decided to go in this direction. Even if he doesn't give you a full season, if they wanted him at 8 to 12, $3 million is that big a deal at 15? It's not like he wants a 5-year, $150 million contract. I would think that's a chance you got to take, risking $5 or $6 million. Is it that desperate from an economic standpoint? Let me hear there.
Well, talking to Eric Neander a couple weeks ago, kind of at the start of the offseason, per se, when you play in a Game 6, you obviously get a late start on it. He used a couple of pretty key words, Chris. He talked about they needed to be flexible and they needed to be responsive. We've heard from all the teams, whoever you want to believe, whatever numbers you want to believe, but they all took massive losses this past season. The Rays maybe less so because their fan-based revenue isn't as high, obviously, but they also didn't get revenue sharing, and no one wants to give out those exact numbers. I wrote a couple years ago from a good source it was about $45 million, so we'll assume it's gone up. Maybe that's $50 million they didn't get this year and may not get next year either. So I do think they are in a position, not tearing it down, but certainly restructuring. They only run about a $75 million payroll as it is, but taking that 15 from Charlie Morton out of there, they declined Zunino's option. That was 4.5. We know they're talking about possibly, or at least interested to discuss trading Blake Snell and or Kevin Kiermaier, or maybe both. Those are the only two players they have making more than $7 million, and the only other guy making more than even 4 or 5 is Yoshi Tsutsugo, who they're not going to be able to trade. So, they are trying to find ways, and to me, those were pretty much code words, flexible and responsive.
Yeah, the Snell scenario, listen, he was very good there at the end of the postseason. Does he want to be traded? Is he annoyed about how he's used? I would think they would find somebody. Now, they may not get a lot back, but he got about $39 million coming to him. They might be able to find somebody who would take that money off their hands. But then if they do that, the Rays don't have any starting pitching. So where do we stand? Let me hear.
Come on, who needs starting pitching? You're the Rays. They had one starting pitcher 1 year for about 2 months. So, look, I think they're going to have plenty of teams that'll be interested in Blake Snell. He's going to turn 28 here in a couple days. He's owed $39 million for 3 years, which is relatively not a lot of money. He has looked really good. You could also, are you sure he's going to be good for 3 more years? I don't think the being taken out of the game by Kevin Cash has anything to do with this. That was a decision Kevin Cash made at the moment. We've talked about that. It was his gut feeling based on what he thought Snell was going to do. I don't think that's why they're going to trade him. I don't think that's why Snell wants to be traded, anything like that. I think if he's here, he'll come into spring training. It'll be a story the first day if we're allowed into camps on the first day, whenever that is, first day. And then we'll talk about it then, and maybe the first time he gets taken out of a game. But that's not why they're going to trade him. If they're going to trade Blake Snell, they're going to trade Blake Snell because they want to get out from under the money. They're going to get a good return for it. I mean, they're not going to just dump the money. They're going to have to get some players back. I mean, they obviously need a catcher. They're obviously going to need a pitcher back because you're right. They are thin losing Morton. They've got Glass now. They've got Yarborough. Chirinos is out. Honeywell, they're not sure what he's going to bring. Fleming came up, a rookie. He was good. Beeks is out for the year. I mean, so they've got between the guys that were hurt last year and losing Morton and now possibly trading Snell, you're absolutely right. They're going to have to figure something out pitching-wise.
And let's go big picture here for a second, Mark. And I know they're very resourceful, and we all know how great that front office is. I mean, we understand that. I mean, Bloom's in Boston and Friedman's in L.A. That's all you need to know. They came from Tampa. And Neander's a good GM. I understand that. And I respect their analytical data, and I respect what Cash does the whole bit. But there comes a point here where, you got to stop spinning your wheels. I mean, every time you have a good season, you got to dump 3 or 4 guys because you can't afford them for the next season. Yes, it's a pandemic. Yes, no revenue sharing. But still, this beat's been going on for Tampa for a long period of time. There's got to be an end game here eventually. As we stand now heading into 2021, are we at the same place we've always been? No stadium? Let's wait till the lease runs out. Then we'll see. Where do we stand now at the future of the franchise? That's the big question when you get right down to it, when you talk to the Rays. Where do we stand there?
That is a big question. And I knew there was a but coming in your preamble there because that was a very good build-up. Look, I think they are, in a way, they operate on a treadmill. They never quite get to the end. They're always changing. They're always shuffling the roster, churning the payroll, trying to keep it at a certain range. I don't think anything's going to change that until there is some type of long-term stadium solution. I think right now, if you had Stu Sternberg on, he would tell you they are still very much focused on the Montreal plan. As unlikely as we've all discussed how that might be to execute, as more challenging you would think it would be now, given the pandemic losses, which have affected every country, every industry. How are they going to get 2 new stadiums built now? One in the Montreal area, one built down here. They're going to use part-time. Yet I do think they looked at last season as a little bit of a test tube as to how that worked when people followed a team and they couldn't go to the games. We're even going to see it now. Ironically, the Toronto Raptors are going to play here in Tampa Bay to open their season, maybe the first half, maybe the whole season. So it's like all these little weird ways to try it out. But ultimately, this is how the Rays do business. And when they get a new stadium, when they get settled, I don't even know if that changes that. This is how they operate. And Chris, I respect what you said about, they get rid of 3 or 4 guys, but they were really good last year and they got rid of 3 or 4 guys and they were really good this year. So, they've got that young core and they find a way to keep it going. Is it harder? Oh, it has to be harder. There's no doubt how hard Eric Neander and his group have to work to maintain that level, and it's going to be more and more challenging as other teams start to do things their way. We've seen that with so many things the Rays have innovated over the last 6, 8, 10, 12 years. But I just think this is the Rays' way of doing business. I don't think it's going to change, even if, and I've talked about this before, I'm still waiting for this Chris Russo Stadium.
Yeah, the stadium. You're right about Tampa. They're not building them a stadium. I mean, that's just, they're not doing it. So I don't know what the end game is. I mean, and listen, that team's been a good team, and they deserve much more fan support that they can get. But, the communities are not buying, helping any owner build a stadium. That's as simple as that. Maybe Montreal, because they want to get back in a sport, will figure something out. That's the issue. I don't know where they're going to get a stadium, Mark, is the issue to me.
Right, and that's the thing. That's why trying to do 2 still seems even, it's like you go from having 1 kid to 2, people say is like having 4. Now you're going to try and get 2 stadiums built. That's going to be really hard. Maybe there's some way it works out down here. I don't know what that is, and I joke, but, it may take someone, not necessarily you, Chris, but someone coming in and saying they're going to be the one to get this done and build a stadium, make it part of a residential, commercial, development, things like that. But the talk right now has been very little as far as the stadium, I think, because obviously the success they had on the field, and there's so much going on economically, in all communities. But I do think that is still their plan. They still have, through 2027 here. They've got to get something figured out in the next couple of years to know where they're going to play opening day in 2028. That's not as far away as it sounds. But yet it's almost like there's a wall there, and then the baseball operations side still does their business knowing that's still out there. they may even get to the point where they're trying to sign a guy to a 4 or 5 year contract. Their next young star, Willie Adames, Wander Franco, Yarborough, whoever it is. Those contracts are going to overlap years when that stadium, might be in play. Where will they be playing in 2028? They're going to have to know answers to that, but they're not going to know them anytime soon.
Good job, Mark. Well done. Always a pleasure. Keep a good work up, and we'll have a good, happy holiday season, too. Thanks for coming on here today. Appreciate it.
All right. Anytime. Same to you guys.